Hello, I'm Jonas Lewinsky and you're watching TVP World Talks, where every word matters. With Russia now engaged in asymmetrical hybrid conflict with the West, ensuring resilience and cohesion within our societies has taken on an added significance. Countries of NATO's eastern flank, which play the role of a bulwark against such acts of thinly veiled aggression, carry a particularly heavy burden in this regard. Today, we will examine the way in which Estonia has reinforced its society through education, raising awareness of the ways in which disinformation and false narratives may be used by Europe's adversaries to spread confusion and undermine democratic processes. Our guest today is Kristina Kallas, Estonian Minister of Education. Hello and welcome to TVP World.
Good afternoon.
So how important is education in this regard? Do you think that today people really need to be made aware of how they personally may be targeted by disinformation in the same way that this has been going on with, say, banking scams, for example?
Oh, absolutely. I think absolutely. There are lots of different factors that are coming in from the society that people need to be made aware of. Russia is one of the actors, and from Estonian perspective, one of the major actors in terms of disinformation campaigning, fake news, fake videos, distorted realities. Doing very clear propaganda and ideological war. But in case of Estonia, I think any news that are coming from Russia, Estonians are kind of genetically immune because the historical experience is talking in favor of not trusting per se any information that is coming from the Russian side. But then on the other hand, we have lots of other disinformation going on. There is AI that is producing fake videos of the people. You look like this is a familiar person, but actually that's created by the camera. There is a lot of fake news, for example, which we saw during the pandemic regarding the vaccinations, which is also very dangerous for the state security. So in that sense, Estonians are not immune to the capacity of understanding what is true and what is not true. And I think in the 21st century in education, that is an essential skill to do the critical thinking skills so that you can actually be able to analyze, okay, wait a moment, I have to ask the questions regarding this information bit that I'm getting from that source.
So do you think that this might really be the problem, that, Estonian citizens are aware that, if they see something that originates from the Russian state media, they will know that it's false. But what about things which are being, sneakily introduced into the information sphere, like something that's disguised as a website with, say, gossip. Later on, it goes on to say things about vaccines, for example, which might be more in line with, the typical far-right narratives. And finally, it goes on to say, helping Ukraine doesn't make sense. It's expensive. This is the way that people are being slowly groomed into this sort of pro-Russian media content. So do you think that this might be the biggest problem nowadays?
Oh, it's absolutely one of the biggest problems. Russia is using this kind of a threat perceptions that in societies exist. People feel insecure about the safety of their health and the family, about migration, about the corruption, for example, designing internet news as making your president corrupt, although in fact none of these events had happened, but there is suspicion. It's enough to throw the suspicion out there that the president has done this and that, and you will be already in a defense position saying that I have never done it, but you're already in the defense position. You talk about the possibility of you being actually corrupt. So these are the things, and you don't necessarily always know that Russia is behind those information operations. So the goal of Russia is clearly to destabilize the political regimes, the democracies of the West, and the priority is absolutely to do the border countries. That's Baltic states, that's Poland, that's Moldova, that's Ukraine, that's Romania. We saw what happened in Romania, to destabilize the political regimes. So in education, in schools, we have to talk about it with kids. Kids are on TikTok. They are regularly on TikTok. That's what they get the information. They know who the Trump is. They know who Putin is. They know much more than we used to know at the age when we were 12 or 10. But the skill of actually making to understand what is going on in the world regarding the TikTok, this is something that the schools have to do. So the media literacy, critical thinking, analytical thinking skills, this is something that the schools, especially at the very early age, I'm talking here age 10, 11, 12, is something that the schools have to focus on.
And as you mentioned, I mean, this is also about creating the sort of distrust towards the democratic system in general. Like, young people thinking, oh, our democracy is so cringe. And then comes the kind of like, kind of like a Georgescu figure who promises, we're going to end all this. We're going to create a new political situation, a new vision. And people are buying into that, right?
Yes.
Do you think the European Union could actually learn something from countries like Estonia insofar as education, but also regulating media platforms is concerned?
Oh yeah, I don't believe in this position of Europe which says that we will not do counter-propaganda. We will only educate children, and that's how we will be resilient against the Russian or Chinese or any other interference. I don't believe in this. I think we need to do the counter-propaganda. And counter-propaganda is to installing the values that we are very strongly believing in and constantly talking about them and pushing those values in the societies. This is a plurality, this is a democratic decision-making, this is rule of law. It's not a strong man who is the one who is going to fix the world, because that's what Putin needs. Putin wants us and our societies and our young generation to believe that the only way to rule the country is to have a strong man, because that's what he sees as he needs in Russia. So he wants young generations of Europe to believe that strongman rule is something that makes everybody around happy. And this democracy of plurality and minority rights and protecting the weak and the vulnerable is not something that makes young generation happy. And we have to do the counter-propaganda here. We have to really do the counter-propaganda, to put our resources into that and do it also through the education systems.
And what if the platforms do not provide a level playing field? We're seeing some troubling instances of that on X, formerly known as Twitter. And you've also mentioned TikTok, which again is a company based in China. Should more regulation be introduced in order to, provide safeguards against propaganda content, against fake news being disseminated on these platforms? Or would you say that there might be other ways to tackle this as well?
I think many resources need to be put into that fight, because it's the regulation. I do believe that we have to do the regulations in Europe, and Europe have been actually, compared to United States and Northern America, have been quite at front by regulating the big tech giants and especially social media giants. But we need to do more. We definitely need to do the regulation. We need to do education. We need to do the counter-propaganda. We need to do the value campaigning with the young generations. And we need to do it also on probably on TikTok platforms or on X platforms. We have to put that into force and not just sit back and wait and watch what is happening and thinking, oh, we are so resilient. We are not resilient to that. To that propaganda. Our societies are not that resilient. And
well,
we
what do you
need to
think
do
is the biggest weakness right now?
I think the biggest weakness is that we think, and that's a mistake, we think that we are resilient, that our education systems are preparing young generation for multi-diverse world, and they have those skills to make the capacity to understand what is fake, what is real, what is true, what is false. And we are sitting and thinking that that's what they have. They don't have these skills. They don't have this capacity to make this difference. So actually installing our own values and really intensively installing those values and fighting for those values with the young generation is something that we have to do. And I know that Europe is very sensitive to the word propaganda for the historical reasons, but we have to be aware that you can win this war with a counter-war. You can't win this war by just sitting back and watching what's going on.
And what methods do you think should be applied? Because we often, see the phenomenon that if something is provided to someone, through the education system, then, many a rebellious spirit will say, oh no, this is just cringe. This comes from school, from teachers. I'm going to rebel against that. And this contrarian attitude may actually direct, young people especially, into websites or sources which are unreliable. So in this regard, would you say that what you refer to as counter-propaganda, shouldn't this be done in a very subtle way, like weaving those values into content, which on the surface is not going to look like, oh, it's educational. Instead, it's going to look like, oh, it's fun. It's something that other people have taken a look at as well, and they say it is great, and I'm going to look like it as well. So the values are being gradually woven into the narratives.
Yeah, of course. I mean, it's not propaganda that we used to see in 1930s with a very militant approach. It's a propaganda that goes through the entertainment, most of the time through the entertainment, through gaming, through the characters that you create in the games. For example, the gaming industry is a very strong creator of value systems for the young generation. So who are the main characters? Who are the heroes in those games? What values those heroes are carrying? So this is also very important, for example, as a gaming industry and the role of the gaming industry in shaping the values, but especially I think the entertainment. But the propaganda does not go through installing. I went through the Soviet education system. I know what communist propaganda was. It was a propaganda that told that there is only one truth, and this is we have to repeat whether you believed it or not. What is important for the Western democracies, if this propaganda we want to work, we have to deliver. We have to deliver the well-being, we have to deliver the security, we have to deliver a safety, and that's a political issue already. I think we have been failing in delivering policy results for the generations, because young generation currently feels that they will be poorer than parents. So it's very kind of a soft ground for the Russian counter-propaganda to work, saying that, look, your democracies are not delivering to you. So I think the delivery is also an important element here, that we really have to look at delivering the results of the policies.
Very much so. Kristina Kallas was our guest today here on TVP World. Thank you very much for joining us and for sharing your insight.
Thank you for inviting.
And I'm Jonasz Rewiński. You're watching TVP World. Please do stay with us for more latest news and updates.